and I take big offense to these, European Dobermans that are 100+ pounds who can't jump a meter jump and who don't have the courage that they need, and they're riddled with health problems. But I think what we saw was this resurgence because at a quick glance, they look impressive. They're big, and to a lot of people, they're beautiful. But to a Doberman aficionado, they are a monstrosity, and they're not our breed.
Welcome to NWA Cane Corsos podcast, where we talk all things dogs.
Welcome back to another show. Welcome to the NWA Cane Corso podcast, where we talk absolutely everything about dogs. Lottie, Dottie, everybody from the rooter to the tutor across the world. So today, Miss Ashley Stursa of Apexe Dobermans is in the house. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am in it to win it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm glad to have you here.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk Dobermans.
Yeah, for sure. Ohio, huh?
Yes.
What part?
I'm up near Cleveland.
Oh, okay, Cleveland. Okay. I guess I know who your favorite basketball player is.
Yes, you do. Yep, I'm right between Akron and Cleveland, so I'm sure you can guess.
Okay, cool. Man, I know a lot of dog breeders in Ohio. Wow, the Cane Corso is that's like the mecca of the breed there in Ohio. Big breeders there. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, so let's get right into it. What made Dobermans your breed of choice?
Sure. Yeah. Good question. I wanted a dog that I could do things with, a dog that had presence. At the time, before I had a Doberman, my husband was traveling a lot and he'd be gone for weeks at a time. So I wanted that sense of security. And when I was looking at different breeds of dogs, started watching videos like a lot of us do. I was on YouTube, whatever. And I was watching videos of dogs doing different sports. And I saw dogs doing Schutzhund. And they were joyful in their work and expressive and powerful. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the sport for me. Maybe a little shallow of me looking at the German Shepherd, the Malinois, all that hair. I just couldn't do it.
Right.
So I went the Doberman route.
Right. Yeah. So as you learned about it, what was some of the process of you learning? Because I know you focus on more the European Doberman, right?
Yes.
So what was the process on learning the direction you was going to take?
Yes. So anytime I research something, I want to get the best and I want to be the best. So I started looking at working line Dobermans because when I looked at the Doberman breed, there appeared to be 3 different subsets of the breed. And there's the American show lines,
Okay.
There's the European working lines, and then there's even European show lines. So to be successful in the sport, the dogs I saw with pedigrees that were, titled up through IGP3 for multiple generations, they were the European working lines. So from there, I looked for breeders with exactly that, European working lines who had multiple generations of the highest titled dogs.
So what are your thoughts on this? Because this is a hot topic when you say show versus working, should it really be that? Should we really be breeding for the total dog, or is this just the way it is, you know?
That's a tough topic, and there will be people that will disagree all day long on this topic, but it's what makes the world go round. So I'll give you my stance on it.
Okay.
I personally don't try to breed for the total Doberman. I see a lot of dogs that are bred to try to do all of these different things, and it's kind of that jack of all trades, master of none. Are there dogs that can do it all? Yes, but I believe that they're outliers. So for me, I love the European working line because they are the best at bite work. They have been bred for, 100 generations of full grips, courage, hardness, resiliency. But, I do sacrifice in things like conformation or aesthetics. So to try to breed for all of it, I think it's impossible.
Yeah, good answer. Good answer. I want to talk about a couple of your dogs. I want you to kind of go in depth with them. And Marco, if I torture the name, forgive me. I'm just a country boy.
That's all right.
I didn't make straight A's in school, so just correct me. So Marco von Landgraf.
Yes, you got it.
Okay. All right. I see that he has IGP3, FH1, BFL 1. Talk about your journey with him. What did he teach you about the breed's resilience?
Sure. Yeah. So when I got Marco, I already had a working line Doberman female, and she wasn't quite working out. She was a nice dog. She's a good pet, but she didn't have the nerve and she didn't have the grips. So I was with this Schutzhund club at the time, and they were working their butts off to try to get this dog to bite and do all the things. And it was hard work for everybody involved. And I was at this club where almost everybody was competing at nationals. They were sending people to the worlds. I was in deep. So while I was training with them, there was another breeder with Dobermans who was in the area at the time, and I met her and I saw what it should be. And that's just kind of how it started. We formed a friendship. I liked her dogs, and I told her, when you breed out of the certain female that I had seen and really liked, I want a puppy from her. So she had flown to Italy to breed to this male at the time who was just a powerhouse. And he was taking down helpers left and right on the long bite. There's these sweet videos, from 2008 or something of him just dragging this guy down to the ground. I was like, okay, this is it. This is what I want.
Right.
So when he was born, I flew out to California. I picked him up and I started the journey. I really didn't know much at all, and I was a horrible handler. I just struggled. My timing was bad, but I would say my consistency and hard work was there.
Right.
And the dog's talents were there, and I felt all this pressure. He was the only male from the super breeding and from, one of the best breeders out there. And I had it, right? So I knew I had to catch up, and my husband and I had moved. So I joined a different club and we trained all the time. Again, I had no idea what I was doing, and this club walked me through every step of the way. My first IGP1 was at the Doberman Nationals, and looking back on it, I still think like, wow, I had no idea what I was doing. But at that point, I was in deep, and I had put the 1 on him. I did the 2 shortly thereafter, and then a female came available from the same breeder. So I took her, and then I got pregnant. I thought, oh my God, how am I going to title these dogs up? Because I had this incredibly talented male, I had this female who's also super nice, And man, we worked our butts off. I ended up in my 3rd trimester doing a BH and an IGP-1 on the female, and then my first IGP-3 on Marco.
Really? Wow.
So
Okay, that's
I
crazy.
was just on a mission because I didn't know, right? I didn't know what
Right.
it would be like. I didn't know how I was going to juggle everything, how I was going to recover, right? So I was just on a mission. I was back at club 2 weeks later.
Really?
Yep, and
Wow,
then
that's crazy.
I did my second IGP-3 with him, I think at, 6 or 8 weeks postpartum, and my husband was driving the baby to club for me to feed her. It was just, it was a wild ride, and
Yeah.
I knew I had this nail that I had to show, and nothing was going to slow me down. So at this point, I knew I wanted to go to the world championship with him.
Mhm,
It's funny because you talk about knowing nothing, right? I
mhm.
get this dog, and the breeder calls me and she says, he's born. Do you want to crop and dock him? And I said, no, I want to compete at worlds. I don't want to, you can't take his ears and his tail off if you want to compete at worlds.
That's
Of course.
right. Yeah, that's right. They gotta have his ear. So when I looked at
Yeah.
your website, I was looking at the ears on them and everything like that. So yeah.
Yeah. So I said, well, no, leave him natural, right? I'm going to go to worlds. You look
Mhm,
back, I'm somebody that did absolutely nothing. And I'm saying
mhm,
I'm going to go to the world championships with this dog. But I did. So at this point, my kid's like 1, and I'm working on qualifying for the worlds. With the Doberman, you have to go to nationals. You have to qualify that way. So I did qualify. Um, we took 2nd place and with 99 points in protection, and we went to worlds.
right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Now,
a
now, now,
wild
now,
ride.
I gotta ask you something.
So
This drive you have, where does it come from? This resilience on finishing things out.
I'm not
What
sure. I think it's
you know,
probably
okay.
genetic, right? Like
Okay, right.
we talk dogs and we talk genetics, and
Uh-huh.
my grandparents were incredibly hard workers, and
Mhm,
I think it just passes through the generations, and they're a total inspiration to me today, the things that they did for our family. So,
mhm.
yeah, I just anything I want to do, I don't half-ass it.
Right, right. Excellent, excellent. Um, Let me say something too. You was I'm sitting over here giggling of you going through this stuff and finishing through with things being pregnant, being post pregnancy and everything. And would you explain the importance of your significant other being on board when you're trying to accomplish things in life on the level you doing it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done it without a supportive club and a supportive husband. My
Mhm.
mom helped a bunch. Um, Anyone that does Schutzender and involved dog sport knows that some of these days are really long. And a club day would be, 8 hours. And we made it work. We pieced it together. My mom stayed at my house, watched my daughter when I competed at Worlds, and yeah, you have to have buy-in. But I think when you look at anyone who's super competitive, even let's say like marathon runners, we can tend to be selfish, right? We have our goals and we want to hit them, and we're on a roll. And I think there's times in a relationship where you're taking, and there's times in a relationship where you have to give.
Yeah, yeah.
So my husband is also a pretty driven person, and right now during this podcast he's on some like 4-hour bike ride. So
Oh, really?
yeah, we just, we have to balance out our goals and who wants to do what, and I think it works out for us, but I don't know how everybody else does it, that's for sure.
What kind of biking does your husband do? Like on the pavement or in the mountain biking?
His passion is mountain biking, but
Oh
as you
man,
know,
he gonna love me. He gonna
well,
love me. I'm gonna tell you
we
why.
okay.
I live in the mountain biking capital of the world. Yeah.
Yes.
Bentonville, Arkansas. the Olympic team trained here last year. That's where I live. There's just bikes everywhere. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
He loves mountain biking. But we're in Ohio and there are no mountains. So
Yeah.
he spends a lot of his time on the road because that's how he can get his fitness in and how he can be on a bike. So God bless him.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So I'm gonna ask you about another dog, but I need to clarify something if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah.
What is a BFL? And I see it's a 1 and a 2.
Yes.
Yeah, explain that to the audience.
That's probably one of the most valuable titles in the Doberman. Of course, in my mind, the Schutzen 3 is the hardest to achieve, but the BFL is a designation for dogs bred for longevity. And when a dog hits 10 years of age, you can register it with the DPCA, which is the Doberman Pinscher Club of America. And when you do that, they issue a certificate and they track that information. So both dogs' parents have to live to 10 or older to get a BFL1. And it can be hard. Things happen. But the biggest thing in the Doberman is DCM. And there are many DCM deaths. I think they say 50 to 60% of Dobermans will die from DCM.
Yeah.
So to get two parents to live over 10 and all the other factors out there, right? You know, the dog could get cancer, the dog could get sick or injured in some other way, but it doesn't matter. They have to live to 10 in order to get this BFL certificate. BFL-2 is the absolute hardest and almost impossible one to get because both generations, both sets have to live to 10. And there's very few dogs listed as BFL-2. Some of it, like I said, some of it's luck that, you know, the dogs live to 10 or older. But I have been really fortunate to have dogs that I bred from my program have the BFL-2 designation.
Right. That's very important. You said that. You have a dog named Akina,
Yes.
right? Akina vom Apex. Correct me if I'm wrong. She is the only Doberman in the world with an IGP3 and a BFL2.
Yes.
Correct?
She is.
Crazy.
And that's from my first litter that I ever bred.
Really?
So,
Yeah.
you know, like I said, some of it's luck, but a lot of it and how I've had success with picking dogs that live long lives are studying the pedigrees, and having the connections, the real life connections in Europe where I can talk to people and ask what types of dogs are still living is huge. The relationship aspect, having people I can trust to lean on to ask those questions to has been the biggest indicator of success.
Right.
And breeding dogs that aren't too young. You know, the gold standard for testing for DCM is the yearly echocardiogram and 24-hour Holter. So, you know, you can Holter and echo a dog even to 5 years of age and have it be normal. And then maybe they're diagnosed at 6, 7, or 8, but by then they've been bred and it's too late. So when I look to breed, most of my breedings are to older stud dogs because then I have all of that data, not just of that dog, but of their parents because their parents are getting older too. So that's something that I really try to take into account when I'm making a pairing.
Yeah, you said that 60% of Dobermans will probably end up with DM the way the stats are rolling. So it's interesting you said that. Do you think what personally, I know everyone has an opinion on this. How do you think you fix that? Because I hear people talk about, well, they need to add in another breed. But clearly y'all have lines that have longevity. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, well, every pedigree has it and it has it somewhere. Whether someone is upfront about it is really the question. I don't know the answer how to fix it. I only know that I can control what I can control.
that's right.
And that's in health testing my own dogs, working with people that feel the same way,
Yes.
that are also health testing their own dogs, people that are honest about when and why their dogs die or how their dogs die. If there's any question as to what happened to a dog, I can't work with them, because I can't knowingly produce something that has that type of outcome.
Right.
But the reality is, there is no magic fix. It's in every line,
Yeah.
and it will happen to all of us at some point. It hasn't happened to me yet, but
Right.
it's there. So
Mhm.
yes, maybe there could be an outcross.
Mhm.
Um, my concern with an outcross program would be, if we picked a breed that's suitable to work with the Doberman and we breed out to it, when we breed back to the Doberman, we might just reintroduce it. So,
Good
Inka,
point.
come here. Lay down.
What's
Sorry,
up,
she's
Baker?
lay down.
Yeah.
Lay
How
down.
many dogs you got?
That's a funny question. Anytime someone asks my husband, he's like, I don't know. Ask Ashley. Um, I only have 2 dogs in my house that
Okay.
live with us full
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
I own or co-own a couple of other dogs, but really 2 to 3 is my limit.
Right.
My dogs live in my house. I don't think Dobermans do very well in a kennel type of situation.
Mhm.
So for
Right.
me, 2 to 3.
So what are they like around the house? Here you are in all kind of IGP World Championships and tough dogs and mentally stable toughness. What are they like around the house? I'm seeing clearly this dog here is just kind of like, what's going on? I'm just checking everything out. Everything's cool. And so what is
Yeah,
the
like
Doberman like on a day-to-day basis?
mostly couch potatoes.
Okay.
The type of dogs that I like love to hang out on the couch or in bed. It varies though. It's funny because I think about the kind of dog I want to live with, and I work full time. I have a little kid. I don't need a liability. I actually work at a law firm, so I see dog bite cases. I don't
Oh, you
need my
do?
dog. Yeah, I
Ooh.
don't. I don't need my dog
Yeah.
biting someone for real.
Right.
So for me, having a dog that is alert, I mean, you can see she's keeping track of what's going on, but most of the time she's laying around and waiting to do something.
Cool, cool. All right, we got our next episode gonna be dog bites with Ashley. Dog bite law. That's cool. Um, so when let's say you do a breeding, right? And you're a working dog person to the buyer, why would an IGP3 be important for them if they were, they was like, searching for a dog?
Sure. Yeah, the IGP-3 is the highest title. And at that point, you know that these titles have built upon themselves. You start with the
Mhm,
BH, which is obedience and a temperament test, then
mhm,
the IGP-1, the IGP-2, and the IGP-3. So you've shown to me or to the buyers that the dog has done a trial situation for at least 4 times and passed.
mhm.
And every day or every trial, it's 3 different phases. It's tracking obedience and protection. So showing that the dog can hold up through those 3 phases with no rewards, with no corrections, with some pressure, right? From whether it be from the judge or from my nerves or from the helper, of course, it's showing their strength and their resiliency and it's showing their drive because it can hold up through all of those things. And most of these dogs know that there's no reward coming. And most of these dogs at this point have figured out that there's no correction if they make the wrong choice. So I think it showcases to someone that the dog has a clear mind
Mhm.
and can do the work.
Right, right. Um, so you competed on a international scale. What's the vibe? What's the difference in international versus the US only?
Sure. Yeah. The competitions in Europe are different.
Mhm.
It's a lot more communal. And like in the US, you'll see big competitions in stadiums, but it's a little bit dry. There's like people hanging out in the grandstands, and maybe there's a food vendor, and maybe there's somebody selling equipment, but it's a little dry.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to Europe, it's a community experience. There's usually tents, and if it's a stadium, the stadium's packed. There's people cheering when things happen. There's people making verbal reactions like, oh, when something goes wrong. There's music, there's beer tents, there's hanging out. So um, it's a blast. In some ways, it's difficult to train for. Before I got onto the field for obedience, I had a man standing in my staging area with two like Pomeranians or Chihuahuas, and I'm like, holy smokes, I got to warm up to go on the field with these two little dogs like 6 feet from me. And that's not something you usually see in the US.
Right, cool. Give your dog the best start possible. We offer proven tools, products, and supplements backed by our real world experience and our passion for healthy dogs. Let me give a shout out. I have a lady in Missouri. I got a couple livestock gardening dogs around here that I breed for small homesteads, farms. If they got coyotes and things like that, and bear problems like where we live. And she's an absolute Doberman lover. I mean, that's her breed of. Oh my gosh, she's just like on another level with the Doberman. And me and her was having a conversation, and a lot of people contact me, and I have a lot of conversation with people. And this one person told me they were like the top Doberman person in the world, and I was like, so I asked her, and she started laughing, and and then I said, then she said, well, who are some of the most impressive people in the Doberman? And she mentioned you. And then I went over and looked. I said, "Damn!" I said, "Well, yeah, she got it going on over there." So yeah, and you don't have 75, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 followers, but really out there kicking ass and everything like that. So, Carolyn, thank you for turning me on to her and whatnot. So I want to give her a shout out for that, because she's an absolute Doberman lover and everything like that. Let me see. Let's go into health and maintenance. As far as y'all don't have a lot of hip issues in that breed, do you?
Not really.
Yeah.
No, I still do the hip testing, but I've
Mhm.
at this point in time never had a dog fail.
Really? Yeah. I think y'all had there was an issue in that breed. What about feed? I know everybody have their preference, but what does diet look like for you, kibble wise?
Sure, that's always a tough question. It's such a like a personal and loaded question because
Mm-hmm.
people feel really strongly about how you feed.
Mm-hmm.
I love raw diets, and I also like high quality kibble.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm feeding raw, I do, 80% meat, 10% bone, 10% organ.
Yes, ma'am.
If I'm feeding kibble, I like Inukshuk.
Uh-huh.
It's high calorie, high protein or fat. There's like different ratios you can get depending on what you're up to with your dog, and that's done really well for me too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, everybody's not everybody, but a lot of people are feeding that in kinetic uh and all that good stuff. So it's something I meant to ask you. What was it?
Think later.
Okay, in pedigree, and you been fortunate enough to get some dogs with some really good longevity in their lives. In pedigree study, um, what are some red flags for you as a breeder where you kind of like, I'm not going to tap into that?
Good question.
Mhm,
Early deaths or unexplained deaths
mhm,
or dogs that have disappeared. If we can't find any information on them, I'm going to assume the worst. So that's the first thing I'm looking at. The second thing I'm looking at are titles. They don't mean everything. I mean, anyone who's been in dogs can tell you they've seen dogs titled to a 3 that weren't very good, or that they've seen dogs that weren't titled that were phenomenal and the owner just didn't have the resources to title. But generally speaking, and looking at the big picture, I want to see both of those pieces. I want to see that pedigree stacked in titles, at least IGP1, ideally the 3 on both sides for generations. But if we have a couple misses in there where the dog isn't titled, but maybe it produced really well, I have no problem with that either. I don't have problems sometimes breeding to a dog who isn't titled if I know the pedigree behind it is strong, or if I've seen the dog myself and know how they work.
Got you. Who has been some of your biggest, or where has some of your biggest inspiration come from in the Doberman?
Good question. There's a lot. There's a lot of really good breeders in Germany who laid the groundwork for the working Doberman. And I'll probably say their names wrong, but back in the day, there was Bayern, Moreike, and Weiermühle. Those were kind of the big players that laid the foundation for the working Doberman. They each had their strengths and their weaknesses, so understanding those is important. But then, there were the breeders in the US who got started and really brought over some of the best dogs and started their best programs. My foundation is through Landgraf, Wendy Schmidt, and she really demands a quality dog, and she has a really good skill for matching good pairings. And I learned a ton from talking to her about how she pairs dogs.
Oh, cool. Women in the breed, women in the sport. I don't know about you, but I see just as many women dominating in whether it comes to sport, breeding, anything, dog training. Do you see the same thing, or is it? I know it's probably still male heavy, but I see a lot of women dominating.
Yeah, when I started, 15 years ago, I don't think it was quite as female heavy, but in the last 15 years, you look at the podium and there's women on it. And sometimes it's the majority of the podium has women, and I think it's awesome.
Why? Why is this happening?
I have no idea.
Y'all don't do it better.
I don't want to say that.
Okay.
The sport has changed, and there's people that like it for what it is today, and there's people that, say it's easier or watered down, or that our dogs aren't as strong. But the reality is the dogs are different that we're breeding today that they were 20 years ago. And the dogs that score well are dogs that are a lot more balanced than I think that were being bred 20 plus years ago. I think we're seeing, just my opinion, the dogs that can score the best are dogs with less aggression and dogs with less defense. Dogs with higher prey tend to do better, and dogs that are just well balanced tend to do better. So I think as a woman, having a dog that's bred for balance, I personally don't like dogs with a lot of natural aggression, and I don't like dogs with a lot of defense. But I think it allows us to use our intuition a little bit better. And I don't consider myself a hard handler, so I don't need to use, nor do I want to use, brute force to train a dog. So I think the types of dogs that we're breeding and competing with today allow us to train in these more balanced methods.
Speaking of balance, how do you balance club life, mother life, work life, business life, wife?
like we talked about, a good support system. And sometimes just knowing when to step back a little bit.
Yeah.
I started a new job a couple of years ago, and when I did, I decided to focus more on obedience. And I'll tell you why. It's because that is the phase I have consistently scored the worst in.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, if you go back and look at Marco's career, I was usually getting V protection and V tracking, which is 96 or higher. And my obedience score would not be anywhere close. And that's kind of what always held us back from being higher. But it was my weakness. So I decided to learn from the best. And that's the AKC obedience, people. The way AKC obedience is scored is incredibly precise. And whether you agree with it or not, it's harder. And so I decided to start showing my dogs more in AKC obedience because there's one right around the corner, 30 minutes from my house. And there are AKC obedience trials available to me almost any weekend I want to go show.
Right.
So being able to kind of just shift gears and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to play an AKC obedience for a bit and I'm going to get better at my weakness instead of, spending all this time at club for a while.
Right.
That's kind of how I juggle. And sometimes it's, my dogs right now are 4 and 5 years old. So I'm not pouring a lot into training a puppy and shaping puppy behaviors, taking them all over to expose them environmentally or socially. So I don't have that, let's call it a burden, but that work right now. So I think just knowing when to take a step back or when to change gears has helped me a lot.
Gotcha. I'm sorry for bouncing all over the place, but
That's okay.
I did forget to ask you about one dog, Clea vom Apex.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
That breeding, it's funny because I'll take a step back to my B litter, which was my second breeding. I was still a brand new breeder, and I flew to Europe to breed to this dog, a Yuri von Waringhoff. He won the Doberman World Championships twice. I really liked this dog. I loved the handlers, the owners of the dog. I met them. We did the breeding in Europe, and I flew home and I had 2 males, and all I wanted was a female, and it just, totally broke my heart. Yuri was getting pretty old, and I didn't want to try flying back to Europe again to breed to him when I knew, you know, the expense was huge and he was getting old. So I researched my pedigrees and I bred to a half brother of a Yuri. His name's Pura von Waringhoff. And I had met him at the World Championships when I competed and I really liked him. So I imported frozen semen from Finland from him. And I had a litter of 2 puppies, a male and a female. And at the time, I should have kept her, but it just wasn't the right time for me. So I placed her with a really accomplished AKC obedience handler, and she's doing really well with her. So it's nice to be able to see.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go to her website, Miss Ashley's website, she kind of documents things that have happened, accomplishments. Well, it's a heck of a stat sheet down here, boy. This is crazy. So go to apexdobermans.com, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and check that out. Let me ask you about what is wobbler syndrome?
Wobblers is a disease. It's spinal and it's in the neck.
Okay.
We don't tend to see it in working lines. So if you want to talk differences in different health problems, I know it can happen in European working lines. I haven't seen it and I haven't experienced it, so I probably am not your girl to explain what it is.
That's something that's not really common in the European breed. Gotcha.
No.
Okay. Gotcha. Temperament. Um, what is a Doberman temperament typically? A good Doberman temperament. What is it like?
It's tough because we all have different styles and what we
Okay.
like. So for me, a good working Doberman temperament is a dog that's confident,
Hmm.
a dog with resiliency, with some hardness, and with courage are the big players.
Hmm.
Some of us want dogs who are more social than others. I want to see a dog who is social, but not necessarily incredibly social. I don't need my dog looking for validation from strangers. I don't like that trait. But I also don't want them shying away from strangers. So for me, I want to see a dog anywhere on the spectrum from neutral to social. Um, the other things and temperament vary, then they vary wildly because there are so many different styles out there.
Hmm.
Those people that like natural aggression or that like defense, they're totally entitled to liking those traits. And I think that's part of what made the Doberman what it is.
Hmm.
But in my experience, in order to score well, those traits aren't ones that I want at the forefront. So as long as everybody's honest about what they like
Right.
and what they're breeding for, I think we can all work together because there are times I need to add some of these traits back into their lines, into my lines, and there are times that I don't want them at all. So as long as I know what traits I'm trying to balance out, then I think I can achieve a pretty balanced dog.
So you're not dealing with any puppies and things like that, and that's always a challenge. Exposure and different things takes a lot of time. But for people who are, maybe people who may have got dogs from you, what do you kind of tell them in just for the first few months on raising your puppy? Things you want to do in general.
I don't think you can over socialize a Doberman puppy.
Mhm.
So, in a breed that does have some naturalist suspicion, I tell my puppy buyers to get out there and socialize their puppies every day if they can.
Mhm.
All positive interactions. Because eventually, at 6 months or 8 months, when we see that puppy's pretty forward and outwardly outgoing,
Mhm.
then they can start dialing it back. But I want to see a dog who's getting a ton of positive social experience in the first, 6 or 8 months of their lives.
Right. Let me ask you this, but since I cover so many breeds, and the breed I'm involved in right now, the popularity is going crazy, and so it's a lot of willy nilly stuff going on, and different, you know how it is in dogs, different belief systems and things like that. As for the Doberman, it went through that too, right?
Yes.
When it got popular and then it spiked up. Um, but I could be wrong. But to me, it seems like the Doberman is making a resurgence. What about to you?
I think the Doberman is making a resurgence, and part of it is due to social media. I'm
Okay.
going to sound like an old curmudgeon here, but it can be a problem.
Mhm.
And what we're seeing, and what I started seeing probably about 5 or 10 years ago, was this obsession with these Dobermans that have really big heads and big chests.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And we were seeing a lot of those dogs promoted on social media, primarily stemming from like Eastern Europe or Russia. And there's a big problem with that. And I take big offense to these, European Dobermans that are 100 plus pounds who can't jump a meter jump and who don't have the courage that they need. And they're riddled with health problems. But I think what we saw was this resurgence because at a quick glance, they look impressive. They're big, and to a lot of people, they're beautiful. But to a Doberman aficionado, they are a monstrosity, and they're not our breed. So I think the average puppy buyer is becoming more educated. We have so many resources at our disposal, and the internet is vast and overwhelming, but someone with discernment can figure out that it's not the right choice.
Right, right. I'm checking out your dog. I really like your dog's uh temperament because I don't like a dog bouncing all over the place. Don't know when to chill. This dog knows when it's off time and know when it's on time. That's a perfect example. I don't know what's out
Yes.
there that window, but he's checking it out.
I don't know either. I'm not sure I want to look. It's probably just a squirrel.
Right, right, right. So, but anyway, I'm getting ready to wrap this up and everything. But let me get you got any advice for newbies uh that's getting into Dobermans, whether it be the working side, people gonna see they're gonna call you out this podcast. I'm just telling you. They're gonna call you, so they're gonna ask you probably the same question because it's gonna
That's
be
okay.
inspiration to someone. But someone who's getting into the working side or just beginning to study the breed, what are some tips you would give them?
The biggest tip I can give someone is to take the health issues seriously.
Hmm.
Um, we're seeing early deaths from DCM, especially dogs that aren't well bred. I've seen people talk about their dogs dying of DCM even under the age of 2. And in my mind, that's criminal. It's absolutely terrible to lose a dog to a genetic condition that young. So the biggest advice is to demand that health testing result,
Hmm.
and not just copies of it, because this day and age, people are photoshopping things.
Photocopy, yeah, yeah, that's true.
And I've seen falsified results. So the tools that we have at our disposal, especially in the US, is we have OFA, which is the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals, and it's ofa.org. And you can search any dog on there. As long as the breeder is submitting the health testing results, it will be listed. And then you can also see the parents and the siblings. It's limited to American dogs, but if you're looking at an American breeder, even if it's working line or show line, any breed, you can find the results. And what OFA does is, I pay a small fee, so I pay $10 or $15
Mhm.
per result, and they check with the veterinarian before they list the results.
That's right. Yeah.
And I tell people that are looking for Dobermans to ask for this. I've worked with plenty of breeders or old school breeders who will say, like, oh, I'm not submitting that to OFA. Like, I keep copies of everything. And I used to subscribe to that too, but the more dogs I had, or the more dogs I bred, and then the more I saw people faking these results, I realized like how important it was to really submit these, because it gives people the confidence that those results were verified, and it also lets anybody access it. So, if it's someone who doesn't feel comfortable asking me for the results, they
Hmm.
can just look for themselves. It's available.
Right.
So that's my number one. Whenever people are looking for a Doberman, is look for those health test results. If you
Hmm.
don't see them, ask for them. If you're not getting them, you should probably move on.
Right, right. Absolutely, absolutely. So is there anything in the future with Apex to expect or what's gonna be in the future for you guys?
My future right now is really exciting. I imported a dog from Germany just over 4 years ago. Her name's Bina.
Mhm.
And when I was looking at pedigrees and different dogs that I wanted to include in my program, I saw this mother line, and it was really uncommon, had great longevity. So I started following the mother of Bina before she was born. And as soon as I saw breeding pop up, I contacted the breeder and I said, I want a puppy from this combination. She was hesitant to sell a puppy to me. She'd sold a dog to the US in the past and had a bad experience. And I was like, I get it. Okay, you don't know me, right? Um, I'll fly you over here. So I flew the breeder with the puppy and I told her, hey, if you don't like me, if you don't like my house, if you don't like how we live, fly home with the puppy. Like I'm willing to take the risk if you are. So it's funny because she turned out to be everything I was hoping for. And at the time, I was really looking for a dog with a ton of drive and kind of like a no-brainer dog, a dog you can just pull out and train, right? You talk about having a busy life. I don't have to be in a good mood to train this dog. I don't have to be at my sharpest to train her. She is just going to train. And yeah, to back it up just a minute, when I was looking at pedigrees, I don't know if you've heard of Armin Winkler. Have you
Oh
heard of
yeah,
him?
of course. Yeah.
Okay, good. Armin's been around forever and he has worked Dobermans back, in the 80s and 90s and kind of when the working Doberman was starting to blow up and he knows those dogs inside and out. So at this point in my program, I was really wondering what to do next. And I had dinner with Armin and his wife, Tazzy. She's a Doberman breeder and she's who Inca's from.
Okay, cool.
And Armin's trying to figure out, Ashley, what do you want? What makes you tick? And I told them, and he said, okay, you need to look for this dog in a pedigree. And his name was Baron. So I'm looking at pedigrees, looking for Baron. And that's how I came across this mother line. And not only as Bina does she have Baron on her mother line, but on the father line too. So 4 generations back on each side, she has this dog Baron. And oh my gosh, she has the qualities that Armin described to me. He, over the course of a dinner was able to figure out what I wanted and guide me in that direction. And anyway, long story short, I have Bina. She has the IGP-1, and I plan on breeding her to my dog Marco, to frozen semen. And that's been a plan that I've had in the works for 5+ years. So I really look to that litter to be a future for Apex and to fulfill some of these big competition homes that I have that want dogs to compete with, because I think they're going to be some really nice puppies.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you attract a lot of the competing families, huh?
Yes, but there aren't many out there.
Yeah.
If you look at, at any given time, how many people are out there that want to compete with a Doberman? There aren't that many. So when I do a breeding or when I do a pairing, my biggest thing is breeding for balance, because if I have a litter of 6 or 8 puppies, there are not 6 or 8 competition homes that are looking.
That's
So
right.
if I have dogs that are stable and they're balanced, they can go on to live normal lives in an active pet home and be, perfectly content.
Right. 100%. Just a few more minutes, because you make me you make me think of some other things.
Of course.
You kept referring to the mother line. To you, let me be careful with this one because people are going to get on to me. In a breeding program, who is the most important to you, the mother or the father?
The mother line.
Okay.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And I think right now I'm in a really good place with having some strong females in my program.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I have Akina vom Apex, who you mentioned earlier, who's the most accomplished dog in my program. I have Exodus vom Apex. She's IGP-2. I'm working with her owner. We did a co-breeding. I have Fire vom Apex IGP-1, who's just starting her career too, and I'm in touch with her owner about possible breeding. So I have some really nice females that I'll be looking to breed, but there aren't a lot of strong males that I'm seeing right now. So I'm curious to see what pops up in the next couple of years that I can use.
Oh, cool. Hey, uh, some of your accomplishments are crazy, especially at IGP-3 and that BFL-2. My God. So yeah, so guys, if you're serious and good owners. You got some puppies coming. So one last thing. I promise this is the last thing. Penny, the one who won the Westminster. Do you think that will cause an uptick? And is every uptick a bad uptick? When popularity happens in breeds. You know what I mean?
I think Penny was a great dog to put up as the winner because she isn't exaggerated in any way, and she's a moderate, well put together dog. As for proper confirmation terms, it's not my place, to call out any faults. I don't know if she has any, but I think it's really good publicity for the breed because
I thought so as well. Yeah.
She's such a good example, and just I don't see it as bad for the Doberman because we will have more interest. It is a breeder's responsibility to figure out if those people are good homes for the Doberman. And, over the past, couple of months since it happened, I don't think I've seen a huge uptick myself, but I'm also in a different market.
That's true. That's true. Yes, ma'am. And I like the I forget his name, but the handler, his story of doing it back in the 80s and doing it again now, and some of his health issues he was overcoming. I just love him come back underdog. I really love the underdog.
Yes, I have a lot of respect for him and for that story. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. Well, I have a lot of respect for you and your story as well, your program, and absolutely astonishing. I appreciate you coming today and sharing your knowledge and about your dogs and different things and informing the people. We live in a time right now which social media can be detrimental to dogs, but we also live in a time where people like you are coming on a podcast and helping with breed awareness. And I really appreciate you, Miss Ashley.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Joe. I'm glad to talk about the Doberman. It's my passion.
Yeah. So give the people your social media where they can find you and different things like that.
Sure. Yeah. My website, apexdobermans.com. I also have a Facebook page, Apex Dobermans, and my Instagram is Apex Dobermans. I'm not big on TikTok. I don't do a ton of training videos. I think they can be misleading. Really, I want the results to speak for themselves. And I think the most important thing for me is the judge's opinion on trial day and the judge's score on trial day. So, sometimes I'll share some short clips, but really it's about photos and results and health test results.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I appreciate you. Ohio, y'all are a very dominant place with dogs. But Cleveland, Akron, all you guys. I got family in Cleveland, so shout out to all y'all. And Miss Ashley, thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Joe.
All right. I'm out.
Take care.
Yeah.
Step into the realm of canine wisdom with our podcast, NWA Cane Corsos, where we interview dog men and women from around the globe. Discover their talents and insights on breeding, training, nutrition, and the rich history of dogs. Tune in to the most underrated yet influential dog podcast on social media. Your journey into the dog world starts here.